Blood Maiden. The first thing that came to mind was the Nether Pavilion. Xianxia felt like the blood throughout his body was on the verge of exploding apart, and he hurriedly shouted, "Nether Pavilion! Air! Second sister. I'm a friend." Second sister? Lian Banzwang shot a bewildered gaze at Xianxia. He knows her? As soon as Xianxia spoke, a moment of silence ensued, and then the blood within Xianxia and Lian Banzwang suddenly calmed down. Xianxia immediately heaved a sigh of relief when he noticed this. Earlier, he'd merely thought that she may be the Nether Pavilion's second-ranked hallmaster. But he wasn't sure. However, he was sure now. "Come here." Meanwhile, a ghastly voice came from afar. How cold. It was extremely cold. It seemed like ice which was hidden for 10,000 years had suddenly emerged, and it caused one's entire body to feel cold. She's definitely not someone who's easy to deal with, Xianxia muttered to himself. Just her voice was quite terrifying. However, the members of the Nether Pavilion weren't easy to deal with at all. Blind Maiden was comparatively better because she was quite amiable. Meanwhile, Lian Banzwang asked, "Are we going over? Can we flee?" Xianxia shook his head and said, "Come on." He started walking off into the distance. Lian Banzwang immediately followed him. Just as Xianxia had said, they couldn't flee at all. Even though she was at the dualism realm, there was a gap between dualism realm experts as well. Moreover, some couldn't be judged based on their realms of cultivation. For example, the Unfettered One had only been a deity when he arrived here, but he could even kill dualism realm experts. Lian Banzwang asked, "You know her?" Xianxia shook his head. "I don't. I just know her sisters, so we can be considered to be related." "No wonder." Lian Banzwang nodded slightly. "Fortunately, you know her. Otherwise, we would be finished." Xianxia asked, "Is she very fierce?" "She isn't just fierce." Lian Banzwang shook her head. "She's extremely fierce and overbearing. As soon as she arrived here all those years ago, she looked for the strongest existence here. Do you know what she told that fellow? She told that fellow to fuck off." Xianxia was at a loss for words. That fellow would naturally not do as she said. Lian Banzwang continued. "After that, she absorbed all of that fellow's blood. That fellow had quite bad luck. He'd been beaten up by the Unfettered One, but the Unfettered One didn't kill him. However, he still hadn't been able to avoid calamity." Xianxia shook his head. He just had to offend someone from the Nether Pavilion. He didn't know how strong the Yang clan was, but he knew the Nether Pavilion wasn't ordinary at all. It didn't take long for Xianxia and Lian Banzwang to stop. A woman was seated cross-legged not too far away from them. Her hair was red. No, it shouldn't be called hair. When Xianxia looked carefully, he noticed that it wasn't hair at all. It was blood that had been shaped into hair. Besides that, she wore a blood-red dress. Similarly, the blood-red dress was condensed into form with blood. She was very beautiful and not inferior to anyone he'd seen over the years. However, there was a faint cold expression on her face, and she seemed unapproachable. Lian Banzwang had an extremely solemn expression on her face as she gazed at the woman. Blood Maiden. She was a taboo here. No one dared to step foot into her territory, and those who had were dead. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden suddenly opened her eyes and gazed at Xianxia. Xianxia's expression changed when he saw her eyes, because her eyeballs were actually pearls of blood. They were pearls of blood that were formed from blood itself. It was unlike how he turned blood red when he utilized slaughter intent. Blood Maiden gazed at Xianxia and said, "Give me an explanation." Xianxia thought for a moment and then he flipped his palm. In an instant, his chest started rising and falling rapidly, and it didn't take long for a stone to emerge from his palm. It was the World-Mend Stone, of course. Blood Maiden didn't seem to have done anything, but the World-Mend Stone instantly flew over into her grasp. She gazed at it for a long time, and then she gazed at Xianxia. "Fourth sister's treasure. Since she actually gave it to you, she has succeeded, right?" Xianxia nodded. "She has gained full control over her physique. When I parted with them, they said they were going to look for you." "She succeeded." Blood Maiden's face became slightly gentle when she heard him, and then she glanced at him. The world-mend stone that belongs to my fourth sister. If she wasn't very close to you or owed you a huge favor, she wouldn't have given it to you. I'm really curious. Tell me about them. Xianxia nodded, and then he slowly described everything that had happened. As Xianxia described everything, Blood Maiden's expression grew gentler and gentler. However, when he spoke about the large world, her face became icy cold once more. A short while passed before ghastly killing intent flashed through her eyes. The larger world. Once I go up there, I'll definitely slaughter all those who acted against us sisters. I annihilate all of them. And I'll sever their path of reincarnation as well. Xianxia's eyelids twitched. She has a hot temper. Blood Maiden waved her hand, and the world-mend stone entered Xianxia's body. You're too weak. Don't go anywhere from now on. Just stay here and no one will dare to look for trouble with you. Xianxia hesitated for a moment and said, I want to leave. Not now. She shook her head slightly. If you came here a year ago, I could have sent you out. But not now. Xianxia was puzzled. Why? She replied. Because someone is coming to kill me. So I have to save my strength. Xianxia and Lian Banzwang's expressions changed when they heard Blood Maiden, and shock filled their eyes. Someone wants to kill her? Who dares to kill her here? Xianxia asked. Who? Blood Maiden spoke indifferently. Who else? Xianxia asked. The large world. She nodded in response. They dare to come down here? Xianxia continued. Wouldn't the Heaven Dao suppress them? Rebirth Realm experts will be coming. Blood Maiden spoke indifferently. So, they'll still be Dualism Realm experts. Moreover, they won't be ordinary Dualism Realm experts. Rebirth Realm experts. Xianxia and Lian Banzwang's expressions became solemn. They hadn't expected it to actually be Rebirth Realm experts. Xianxia remained silent for a short while before he spoke in a low voice. Why didn't they just come down here and kill Third Sister and the others? If they did, Third Sister and the others would have definitely been unable to stop them. They don't dare, Blood Maiden continued. They fear me and eldest sister. If Rebirth Realm experts are suppressed to the Dualism Realm upon descending here, they will die. Xianxia asked. Then why do they dare to descend here now? Lian Banzwang was quite horrified by the sight of Xianxia constantly asking Blood Maiden questions. Because Xianxia didn't know how terrifying Blood Maiden was. Blood Maiden was known for having a terrible temper. But she answered every single question Xianxia asked. That really made Lian Banzwang quite curious. Actually, it was very normal. It was just that her feelings for her sisters had been extended to Xianxia. She could be considered to have acknowledged Xianxia, and that was why she treated him like this. A moment of silence ensued, and then Blood Maiden said, Because I'm about to ascend into the Rebirth Realm. It's a critical moment, and it's the best time to kill me. They won't give up such an opportunity. So, I can't break open the space here and send you out right now. The space here is easy to break, but that I will come. I naturally didn't fear it in the past, yet now it would be very disadvantageous to me if it attacks me. Xianxia nodded. I understand. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden stood up slowly. It won't take long, just 10 days. 10 days later, you can leave this place. Of course, you may die as well. Xianxia asked, You're going to charge into the Rebirth Realm in 10 days from now? She nodded slightly. The reason I came here was to open the blood demon fruit that grows here. Can heal my injuries and improve my strength. Presently, my strength and injuries have recovered by around 70%, and it's time to leave. Lian Banzwang was stunned when she heard this. Blood Maiden is actually injured. In other words, she was heavily injured when she arrived here all those years ago. However, she still killed that demon beast who was the strongest here. That demon beast was at the peak of the Dualism Realm. If she wasn't injured and was at her peak, then how terrifying would she be? Actually, Lian Banzwang wasn't the only one. Xianxia had been shocked as well. He'd naturally not expected Blood Maiden to be injured. Xianxia's eyes lit up when he thought up to this point. Are there any injuries I can't heal? So, Xianxia immediately said, I can heal you. I can heal any injuries. Blood Maiden shook her head slightly. It's no ordinary injury. External forces can't heal it at all. Xianxia spoke seriously. I really might be able to do it. In any case, besides lifespan, there hadn't been anything that the primordial violet energy couldn't heal. Blood Maiden shook her head. It was caused by rebirth energy and leaves no trace behind. Simply speaking, I still want to try. Xianxia spoke in a very serious manner. Let me try, all right? She gazed at him for a few moments and said, Then try. Xianxia nodded. Excuse me. As he spoke, he grabbed her arm, and then his primordial violet energy flowed slowly into her arm. Blood Maiden's expression changed when she sensed the primordial violet energy that flowed into her. And then she grabbed Xianxia's arm and asked, What profound energy is this? Xianxia smiled. Unique profound energy. She glanced at him and didn't inquire further. She just nodded slightly. I need a large amount of this profound energy, a very large amount. Xianxia thought for a moment and said, You can temporarily delay your advancement, and do it after you've recovered completely. In that way, it'll be much safer, right? I can't. She shook her head. I've suppressed my advancement for too long just to recover from my injuries. Now I'll collapse if I continue suppressing it. However, with this profound energy of yours, at least 90% of my injuries can be healed in the next 10 days. That's good. Xianxia nodded. Then I'll concentrate on healing you for the next 10 days. She glanced at him and nodded. Meanwhile, Xianxia seemed to have thought of something. He gazed at Blood Maiden and asked, Are you or the Unfettered One stronger? Blood Maiden fell silent. The Unfettered One possessed the sword domain, and his attains in the sword Dao were extraordinary. As for his strength, there was naturally no need to mention how great it was. However, Blood Maiden wasn't weak. She similarly possessed a domain, and her strength was beyond doubt as well. Both of them had come in here from the outside world and swept through everyone here. So, Xianxia was very curious about who was stronger amongst them. Lian Banzwang gazed at Blood Maiden as well because she was similarly curious. She'd seen the Unfettered One all those years ago. Dualism realm experts were powerless against him. Similarly, she'd witnessed Blood Maiden's strength, and dualism realm experts weren't a match for her as well. So, the question was who was stronger? Blood Maiden remained silent for a long time, and then she said, I've heard about him. He's an extraordinary genius with sword techniques that have reached the acme of perfection. Not to mention this place, even if it's in the large world, there's no one who can defeat him. As for me, even if I fought him in my prime, I wouldn't have any chance to defeat him. I wouldn't even have a 30% chance to defeat him. Xianxia's face became solemn. Is he really that strong? Blood Maiden gazed at Xianxia and said, Very strong. Even if eldest sister fought him, she would only have a 50% chance to win. Their eldest sister. Xianxia naturally knew that the Nether Pavilion had an eldest sister, and he was very curious about her identity. However, he didn't ask. There were things that he could ask, and there were some that he couldn't. However, meanwhile, Blood Maiden continued. While he is strong, there is someone who can suppress him. Even the Unfettered One can be suppressed? Xianxia hurriedly asked, Who is that? Blood Maiden remained silent for a while before she spoke once more. That person was given birth to by the world, grew together with all things in the world, and possesses the strength of the world. However, that person is very mysterious, and only a few have heard rumors of that person. No one has actually seen that person. She paused for a moment and continued. Perhaps you'll be able to meet that person in the future. Xianxia smiled bitterly when she didn't tell him everything in detail. She's keeping things from me on purpose. Meanwhile, Blood Maiden spoke abruptly. You're not weak, and your natural talent isn't bad at all. Moreover, you possess great karmic luck and fortune. Your future accomplishments won't be inferior to the Unfettered One. Of course, the precondition is that you don't die. Xianxia smiled and remained silent. He had no intention to make unrealistic comparisons with himself and the Unfettered One. He'd never had such intentions. The Unfettered One's strength was the Unfettered One's business, and all he had to do was manage his own business well. However, he did admire the Unfettered One. After all, the Unfettered One was a formidable expert, and he really wanted to meet the Unfettered One, if possible. Because Blood Maiden's injuries were very severe and were very old, it was rather difficult to heal. So, Xianxia provided her primordial violet energy every single day, and she would use it to repair her injuries. Lian Banzwang hadn't left, and she stayed behind instead. She naturally wouldn't. After all, it was very likely for her to leave this damnable place if she followed Xianxia. Xianxia didn't have the strength to leave, but Blood Maiden did. However, she was very well aware that it was a gamble. After all, Rebirth Realm experts might be coming to kill Blood Maiden. If she stayed here, her life may be in danger. But she still wanted to make this gamble because it was something worthy of using her life to gamble with. Xianxia didn't just sit and do nothing once he finished providing primordial violet energy to Blood Maiden, and he started to cultivate Elemental Breaker and the Undying Elemental Body. He started on Elemental Breaker first. It utilized a unique method to condense the energy of the 5 elements into a punch, and it could disregard all defenses. Elemental Breaker wasn't stronger than the energy of Yin and Yang. However, it had a special characteristic, and it was its ability to pierce through its target's defenses. It was extremely useful to Xianxia, who didn't possess the energy of Yin and Yang. For example, if he fought the ancient Emperor Python with this technique, his punches could cause real damage to it. Or to be precise, no matter how strong his opponent's defenses were, those defenses would be useless before the Elemental Breaker technique. Elemental Breaker was capable of posing a threat to Dualism Realm experts, but the precondition was that they allowed him to get close to them. Moreover, there was another precondition, and it was that the physical strength of the person executing Elemental Breaker had to be extremely strong. Elemental Breaker's strength was reliant on the physical strength of the user. Similarly, the Undying Elemental Body relied on its user's physical strength to determine if it could resist the energy of Yin and Yang from Dualism Realm experts. Based on Xianxia's physical strength and defense, if he were able to cultivate them successfully, then the Elemental Breaker and Undying Elemental Body techniques would be able to make up for the gap in cultivation between him and Dualism Realm experts. At that time, he could fight Dualism Realm experts even without the casket lid. Deities? At this moment, deities weren't his targets anymore. Now, he had to think about how he would kill Dualism Realm experts. With the Sword Domain's help and Blood Maiden's guidance, Xianxia's speed of cultivation could be described as terrifying. It only took him less than 2 days to fully grasp the Elemental Breaker technique. Such speed didn't just shock Lian Banzwang, it even shocked Blood Maiden slightly. So, as far as they were concerned, Xianxia was a monster. After all, the stronger a technique was, the more difficult it would be to cultivate. Just like the Elemental Breaker technique. If an ordinary person tried to cultivate it, it would take a month or more to grasp it. But Xianxia had merely used 2 days. That was truly a blow to the confidence of anyone who knew. After he finished cultivating the Elemental Breaker technique, Xianxia started to spar with Lian Banzwang. He would naturally not ask Blood Maiden to spar with him. It was sparring if he asked Lian Banzwang, but he would be asking for a beating if he asked Blood Maiden. Xianxia clenched his right fist, and it emanated a faint glow. Lian Banzwang was standing in front of him. Even though he was just a semi-deity, she who knew Xianxia well didn't underestimate him or act carelessly. Xianxia gazed at her and said, "Come and try my Elemental Breaker." As soon as he finished speaking, he stomped his right foot against the ground, and his figure shot forward like a cannonball. He was extremely swift and instantly arrived before Lian Banzwang, and then he slammed his fist at her. Lian Banzwang didn't dodge. She clenched her fist and slammed it against Xianxia's fist. Her fist was naturally covered in the energy of Yin and Yang. Boom! As soon as their fists collided, they swiftly split up. After that, both of them took numerous steps back. Xianxia stopped after moving 300 m backwards, and Lian Banzwang stopped after moving a little over 200 m backwards. Xianxia glanced at his fist, and a wisp of excitement flashed through his eyes. Even though he was at a disadvantage, Lian Banzwang was a Dualism Realm expert. He hadn't used any treasures, and he'd merely relied on his fist to fight a Dualism Realm expert. If he used the casket lid as well, he wouldn't have to fear dualism realm experts at all. Of course, it was only limited to ordinary dualism realm experts. Blood Maiden was in the dualism realm as well, but the gap between her strength and Lian Banzwang's strength was absolutely huge. Meanwhile, Lian Banzwang said, "That technique combined with your physical strength is sufficient to go against the energy of yin and yang. Congratulations. From now on, you can fight dualism realm experts without using any treasures." Xianxia smiled. He was about to speak when Blood Maiden, who sat cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened her eyes. "How can you think like that? His strength is sufficient to fight dualism realm experts, but it doesn't represent that he can kill dualism realm experts. Not to mention anyone else. Do you think he can kill you?" Lian Banzwang glanced at Xianxia and shook her head. Even though Xianxia had become much stronger and could resist her energy of yin and yang, it was clearly not very likely that he could kill her. Blood Maiden gazed at Xianxia. "Remember that you must not be careless in a battle with a dualism realm expert. Banzwang is just an ordinary dualism realm expert, but if you encounter those special dualism realm experts like those who have grasped some sort of law or formidable intent, you'll realize that there's quite a large gap between you and them." Xianxia nodded. "I understand. I won't get overconfident." Blood Maiden nodded lightly. "Remember that you must never be overconfident. Many people think they're extraordinary upon gaining some accomplishments. Actually, people who have such thoughts are mostly weaklings. The truly strong know how vast the world is, and they know themselves well. That's exactly why they never feel overconfident. You have natural talent and the right mentality, but mentality can change. Some grow stronger and strong, but some grow weaker and weaker. So, you must constantly examine yourself and your heart." As soon as she finished speaking, she gazed at Lian Banzwang. "You too." Lian Banzwang quickly nodded. "Thank you for the reminder." Xianxia nodded. "Thank you for the guidance." Just as Blood Maiden had said, it really was easy to get overconfident. Moreover, once one became overconfident, one would become blind and unable to discern one's strength properly. That was extremely terrifying. Blind Maiden nodded slightly, and then she closed her eyes. After that, Xianxia started cultivating the undying elemental body technique. Just like the elemental breaker technique, it required the energy of the 5 elements, and it used the energy of the 5 elements to strengthen the body. Presently, Xianxia's body was at the undying realm, so his body would definitely grow a level higher if he cultivated the undying elemental body technique. The undying elemental body technique had certain requirements towards its user's body, but it wasn't a problem for him. In the blink of an eye, 7 days had passed. Besides providing primordial violet energy to Blood Maiden, Xianxia just cultivated the elemental breaker, undying elemental body, and rebirth sword techniques throughout these 7 days. Even though he'd succeeded at grasping the elemental breaker and rebirth sword, he still had to train diligently. Every single time he cultivated them again, he would comprehend new things about the techniques. Just like that, 2 more days passed. Blood Maiden sat cross-legged on the ground, and she frequently emanated a faint bloody glow. Xianxia knew that it was a sign that she was on the verge of being unable to suppress her cultivation any longer. If it were at any other ordinary time, that would definitely be good news. She would just naturally advance into the rebirth realm. After all, she was once at the rebirth realm, so it wasn't really a breakthrough but recovering to the rebirth realm. However, it still required a process, and that process was the period she was in most danger. Noon. Blood Maiden suddenly opened her eyes and said, "They're here." The ominous city. Noon. A middle-aged man in a luxurious robe and a middle-aged man in an embroidered robe appeared out of thin air at the entrance of ominous city. The middle-aged man in a luxurious robe smiled. "Di Jiang, how long has it been since you came down here last?" The man in an embroidered robe, Di Jiang, glanced at the surroundings. "I don't remember." The other middle-aged man chuckled. "What do you think?" Di Jiang spoke indifferently. "Let's talk about that once we're done with that woman." The middle-aged man asked, "How confident are you?" A moment of silence ensued before Di Jiang spoke indifferently. 90%. 90%. The middle-aged man withdrew his smile. fell silent for a few moments, and then said, "She's not ordinary. The second hall master of Nether Pavilion. How could she possibly be ordinary?" Di Jiang spoke indifferently. "If it was during the time she was at her prime, then not to mention the two of us, even two more wouldn't be able to do anything to her. However, it's different now. She's heavily injured now. Moreover, her cultivation has dropped and it's the critical moment for her advancement. As for us, not only has our strength not dropped, it has grown stronger over the years. So, how could she possibly be a match for us?" The middle-aged man said, "I'm worried about Sky Maiden. Even the Oracle can't deduce her whereabouts. It's like she has completely vanished. If she comes—" Di Jiang's face was instantly covered in a solemn expression. Sky Maiden. That name had once instilled horror in the large world. At that time, no more than a handful could fight her. Di Jiang remained silent for a moment before he shook his head. "Since the Oracle said she won't be here, then she probably won't be here." The middle-aged man in a luxurious robe said, "What if she does?" Di Jiang gazed at the middle-aged man. "Zhan Yuan, when did you become so cowardly? If she comes, then she comes. Are you telling me that we need to fear her? Do they still possess the same strength that they used to possess?" Zhan Yuan shook his head. "You're from the generation after them. So you never fought them and don't know how terrifying they are. Every single one of them is a monstrous genius. Forget it, since we're here, then we can only march forward bravely. If the second hall master is able to advance to the rebirth realm, then it'll definitely be a calamity for all of us." Di Jiang nodded. "She must die today." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and vanished without a trace. Zhan Yuan vanished with him. The ominous territory. As soon as Di Jiang and Zhan Yuan's figures vanished, Blood Maiden suddenly opened her eyes and looked up towards the sky. "They're here." As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand and sent both Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang around 30 kilometers away. At the moment they vanished, Di Jiang and Zhan Yuan appeared in the sky above her. Once they appeared here, numerous divine senses swept towards them from all directions. Obviously, it was the other human experts and demon beasts in the ominous territory. Di Jiang glances at the surroundings. "We're only here for her, and we'll leave once we kill her." As soon as they heard Di Jiang, those divine senses were instantly retracted like a receding tide. Yang Yi had an extremely solemn expression on his face as he gazed at the two middle-aged men in the sky. Rebirth realm experts. Even though they'd been suppressed to the dualism realm, they were rebirth realm experts. Something worth mentioning was that one's cultivation wouldn't be suppressed here. However, they hadn't come here directly. They'd descended to the lower dimensions from the large world, and their cultivations had been instantly suppressed when they descended. While this place was an independent world, it still belonged to the lower dimensions. So, one's cultivation in the outside world would remain the same when one entered this place. Similarly, if someone left this place, that person's cultivation would be suppressed as well. Based on what Blood Maiden told him, it's a law that the Supreme Heaven Tao had created. No one dared to violate that law because anyone who did would be treated as an enemy of the Supreme Heaven Tao. Even though Rebirth Realm experts were extremely strong, they didn't want to be constantly pursued by the eye of the Heaven Tao. Di Jiang's gaze descended onto Blood Maiden, second hall master of the Nether Pavilion. "Your reputation precedes you." Blood Maiden transformed into a veil of blood that appeared before them. She glanced at them and said, "Did the Emperor's Sect and War Pavilion just send both of you? Are we not enough?" Di Jiang spoke indifferently. "Blood Maiden, if you're at your prime, then even both of us would have to fear you. However, your strength hasn't just declined, you're even injured. Moreover, you have to suppress your cultivation. If I'm to be honest, just I alone am enough." "You alone?" Blood Maiden gazed at Di Jiang, while an evil smile curled up on the corners of her mouth. "In the past, I could fight 10 of you without breaking a sweat." "How laughable!" Di Jiang laughed with ridicule. "Blood Maiden, your Nether Pavilion really is filled with arrogant members. No wonder all of you were crushed all those years ago." "Crushed?" The evil smile on her face became ferocious. "Don't worry, Once I return to the large world, then everything all of you did to us sisters all those years ago, I'll do 10,000 times worse to all of you. Di Jiang spoke indifferently. Don't worry, you won't be alive to return to the large world. Blood Maiden chuckled. By the way, is that bitch, the Oracle, still alive? Di Jiang replied. She said she'll only die after she watches all of you die. As expected. Blood Maiden nodded. If it wasn't for her, both of you wouldn't have been able to come here at such a time. It's fine. I'll personally head up there and send her on her way. As soon as she finished speaking, Blood Maiden vanished on the spot. A moment later, the sky was transformed into an ocean of blood. The ocean of blood was boundless, and it seemed to cover the entire sky. It didn't take long for rumbling to resound from the ocean of blood. At this moment, the entire forbidden area of the ominous territory was trembling. At the same time, countless demon beasts and human experts here were watching the battle. Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang had solemn expressions on their faces. The pressure coming from the ocean of blood was extremely terrifying. Just the aura felt extremely dangerous to Yang Yi. Lian Banzwang's face was extremely solemn as well. Even though all three of them in the sky were at the dualism realm, their true strength was at the rebirth realm. So, Yang Yi wasn't the only one who sensed danger. She too sensed danger. Yang Yi naturally didn't try to interfere. He couldn't interfere in a battle that was at such a level. If he were to forcefully interfere, it would only cause trouble for Blood Maiden. So, he had no choice but to just watch. The battle in the sky grew more and more intense, and even the sky and the ground here had started to tremble violently. The reason it felt like that was because the ground and space here were trembling violently. It was a truly shocking scene. Meanwhile, worry had appeared in Yang Ye's eyes. He was naturally worried about Blood Maiden. He was very close with the sisters from the Nether Pavilion, and Blood Maiden was quite good to him. Moreover, if she lost, then who would send him out of this place? Those two fellows from the large world. That would be impossible. If Blood Maiden loses the battle, they may even kill him and Lian Banzwang. So, Blood Maiden could absolutely not lose. Unfortunately, he could do nothing to help. A battle at this level wasn't something he could interfere in at all. Lian Banzwang spoke in a low voice. Which side will win? Yang Yi fell silent. If it was a one-on-one battle, then he had no doubt that Blood Maiden would be the strongest. However, it was a two-on-one battle. Moreover, the biggest problem was that Blood Maiden was suppressing her cultivation. She had to divide a portion of her strength to suppress her cultivation while dealing with two Rebirth Realm experts. That was extremely disadvantageous to her. The battle grew more and more intense. Yang Yi noticed that cracks had actually appeared in space. Even though those cracks were very fine like strands of hair, they were there. Is the space here going to collapse? Yang Yi wasn't the only one who had such thoughts. Lian Banzwang's eyes were filled with shock when she witnessed this scene. The space here was extraordinarily strong, but the battle between those three fellows had actually been able to crack the space here. Even though the damage wasn't severe, it was very likely that the space here would collapse if the battle carried on. Around an hour later, crack. A loud and clear crack resounded through the entire forbidden area of the ominous territory. After that, Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang watched with astonishment as the space in the entire sky cracked apart. Crack after crack started spreading swiftly towards the surroundings, and it seemed like an astounding spiderweb. Meanwhile, Lian Banzwang spoke solemnly. Trouble is coming. Sure enough, as soon as she finished speaking, a terrifying wave of pressure suddenly appeared in the surroundings. Yang Ye's figure instantly curved before the pressure, and he was almost pressed flat on the ground. What's that? Yang Yi was shocked, and he hurriedly released his sword intent and slaughter intent. As soon as those two intents appeared around him, his body finally recovered slowly. However, the pressure still pressed down upon him to the point that he felt slightly suffocated. Meanwhile, Lian Banzwang suddenly pointed up towards the sky. Look over there! Yang Yi looked along the direction she pointed towards. At this moment, a huge eye suddenly appeared there. The Eye of the Heaven Tao. This Eye of the Heaven Dao was quite similar to the Eye of the Heaven Dao that Yang Yi had seen in the past. However, it was much larger than them. At this moment, the battle in the sky had stopped. Regardless of whether it was Di Jiang or Zhan Yuan, both had a wisp of seriousness and fear in their eyes. Not to mention the current strength they possessed. Even if they possessed the strength they had at their prime, they still wouldn't dare to go against that Eye of the Heaven Dao. There wasn't any seriousness on Blood Maiden's face, and there was only a trace of caution in her eyes. All three of them didn't attack. The reason they didn't attack was naturally because they were afraid it would attract the attention of the Eye of the Heaven Dao, causing it to target them. Regardless of whether it was Di Jiang's group or Blood Maiden, it would definitely be a calamity for them if the Eye of the Heaven Dao targeted them. Suddenly, 5 multicolored bolts of lightning surged out from the Eye of the Heaven Dao, and they shot down towards the 5 people here. It was naturally Blood Maiden, Di Jiang, Zhan Yuan, Yang Yi, and Lian Banzwang. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched at the sight of this. What the heck? I didn't even offend it. Suddenly, a ray of white light surged out from Yang Ye's chest. The white light dispersed, and Little Sky appeared by Yang Ye's side. Yang Yi was stunned. He was just about to speak when Little Sky suddenly looked up at the Eye of the Heaven Dao. After that, she waved at the Eye of the Heaven Dao and smiled playfully. "Hello, little Sky. Long time no see. Wow, you've actually become so huge. Congratulations." Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Everyone gazed at Little Sky with disbelief. That little girl is greeting the Eye of the Heaven Dao. However, what happened next made their jaws almost drop to the ground, because the descending divine lightning suddenly stopped, and then all of it returned to the Eye of the Heaven Dao. After that, the Eye of the Heaven Dao actually moved slightly in the sky. If one treated it as a head, then it was nodding. In other words, it was replying to her greeting. Everyone here was stunned, especially Yang Yi. The Eye of the Heaven Dao is actually greeting her. Meanwhile, Little Sky suddenly floated up towards the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Yang Yi quickly stopped her when he saw her do that. Little Sky grinned at him. "Don't worry, little Sky is very kind. It won't harm me." Kind. While Yang Yi was stunned on the spot again, Little Sky had arrived before the Eye of the Heaven Dao. After that, she stretched out her hand and touched it. Not only did it show no signs of resisting, it seemed very happy instead. Di Jiang and Zhao Yun weren't the only ones who were extremely shocked by this. Even Blood Maiden was surprised. The Eye of the Heaven Dao. In the hearts of all cultivators, it was an absolutely terrifying existence. Even Rebirth Realm experts didn't dare to look down on the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Or it should be said that they feared the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Especially an Eye of the Heaven Dao like this one, which was comparable to the Eye of the Heaven Dao in the large world. Such an Eye of the Heaven Dao could kill Rebirth Realm experts. Even they didn't dare to get close to the Eye of the Heaven Dao. However, they hadn't imagined that a young girl would actually greet the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Moreover, they couldn't believe their eyes when they saw that young girl actually dared to touch it. But the even more inconceivable part was that the Eye of the Heaven Dao actually allowed her to touch it. It was the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Di Jiang and Zhan Yuan's eyes were filled with bewilderment and a trace of vigilance as they gazed at Little Sky. Blood Maiden's eyes were similarly filled with bewilderment. Obviously, even she had never witnessed something like this. In the sky, Little Sky touched the Eye of the Heaven Dao and spoke softly. Little Sky, all 3 of them are very strong, and you're definitely unable to defeat them if they join forces. Even if you succeed, you'll definitely be injured. So just ignore them and let them fight. Alright? The Eye of the Heaven Dao suddenly emanated a faint ray of light, and it seemed to be talking to her. A moment of silence ensued before Little Sky suddenly turned to look at Blood Maiden and the others. It can ignore you, but you can't destroy the space here. So, if you want to fight, then jointly create a pocket of space and then fight there. That's not a problem, right? Di Jiang took a deep and long glance at Little Sky, and then he said, "We don't have a problem with that." They naturally didn't have a problem. If they did and the Eye of the Heaven Dao attacked them, then they would be in trouble. They wouldn't fear it at any other time because while they didn't dare to destroy it, it couldn't do anything to them as well. After all, this Eye of the Heaven Dao was only comparable to the Eye of the Heaven Dao in the large world, and there was still a small gap between them. Yet now, Blood Maiden was here too. If she joined forces with it, then they wouldn't have a chance to win at all. Little Sky nodded, and then she gazed at Blood Maiden. Blood Maiden glanced at her as well and spoke indifferently. "No problem." Little Sky sized up Blood Maiden. "You're really amazing. You've actually developed your blood domain to such an extent." Blood Maiden looked Little Sky in the eyes. "You're really amazing too. I can't even see through you." Little Sky chuckled, and then she turned to look at the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Meanwhile, the Eye of the Heaven Dao suddenly looked down at Yang Yi. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched at the sight of this. Did it notice my blood sentence? Sure enough, Little Sky suddenly floated down to him, and then she lightly tapped his forehead. In an instant, a character floated up from Yang Ye's forehead. The Eye of the Heaven Dao instantly started trembling at the sight of it, and it seemed to be about to attack Yang Yi. Little Sky asked, "You killed an Eye of the Heaven Dao in the past?" Yang Yi nodded. He couldn't deny it because that character was the proof of it. A moment of silence ensued, and then Little Sky suddenly grabbed the character above Yang Yi. Yang Yi watched with astonishment as she actually managed to grab it, and then she rubbed it lightly, causing it to instantly transform into blood-red threads which vanished in the air. Little Sky patted her hands together and looked up at the Eye of the Heaven Dao. She waved at it and said, Little Sky, you can leave. I'll come visit when I have the time." The Eye of the Heaven Dao moved down and up a little, and then it gradually became ethereal. In the blink of an eye, it vanished in midair. Once the Eye of the Heaven Dao vanished, Blood Maiden took a deep and long glance at Little Sky, and then she turned to look at Di Jiang and Zhan Yuan. She didn't waste her breath, and she just transformed into a ray of blood-red light that shot up into the air. Di Jiang and Zhan Yuan glanced at Little Sky, and then they transformed into beams of light that shot up into the sky. It didn't take long for the space here to start trembling again. However, it was much weaker. Obviously, they'd created a pocket of space as their battlefield. Meanwhile, Little Sky was about to return into the primordial pagoda, but Yang Yi stopped her. Yang Yi asked, "You know the Eye of the Heaven Dao?" Little Sky nodded. "I do. I used to play with it a lot. It's really fun. It's able to release a huge amount of lightning, and they are even in all sorts of colors. The Eye of the Heaven Dao is fun." Yang Ye's face twitched, and then he laughed bitterly. "Since you knew it, then why didn't you tell me? It's guarding that door. Since you know it, then don't you just have to say the word and it'll let us pass through?" "I only recalled just now." Little Sky had a slightly innocent expression on her face. "I only recalled that when I sensed it just now." Yang Yi gazed at her for a long time before he asked, "Have you really lost your memories?" "Yes." Little Sky nodded. "But if I've encountered them in the past, then I recall many things when I see them. But if I don't encounter them, then I can't recall anything. Oh my, it's all because I went to sleep. I can't keep sleeping from now on." Yang Yi said, "Little Sky, who are you?" He was really extremely curious about her identity and background. She was truly too mysterious. She could be friends with the Eye of the Heaven Dao. In short, she was a mystery. Little Sky blinked when she heard Yang Yi. "I'll tell you when I remember. All right?" Yang Yi glanced at her and nodded. "All right." As soon as he finished speaking, he hesitated for a moment and said, "Can you make that Eye of the Heaven Dao help my friend?" If Blood Maiden had the Eye of the Heaven Dao's help, she would definitely win. Little Sky shook her head. "I can't." Yang Yi was puzzled. "Why?" She explained. Little Sky is the Eye of the Heaven Dao. It represents a form of law and order. Since it's law and order, it has to be fair. If it arbitrarily interferes in the battles of humans, then the consequences would be unimaginable. Because at that time, it would represent that the law and order here were in chaos. So, it won't interfere in the battles between the races in this universe. Yang Yi said, "But I heard that the Eye of the Heaven Dao is controlled by some powers in some worlds. How do you explain that?" She replied, Not every place has law and order. Or perhaps, it can be said that when a power's strength surpasses the eye of the heaven Tao, they may stand high above it and create a new form of law and order. However, there are no powers like that in this universe. Even if the eye of the heaven Tao in some small worlds may work together with some powers, it's on the basis that the person they are targeting is someone who'd committed a serious crime. You're a good example. If you were the one fighting those two fellows just now, Little Sky would have definitely made you its prime target. Xianxia felt speechless. Little Sky continued, "There's another reason why I made it leave. Those two fellows are very strong, and that woman is extremely strong too. If they join forces, it'll be extremely dangerous for Little Sky. But that fool never uses its brain on most occasions. So I had no choice but to help it. Now everyone has made a compromise." Once he heard this, Xianxia understood why she'd come out here. She was worried that Blood Maiden and the others would join forces against the Eye of the Heaven Tao. Actually, it was possible, because the Eye of the Heaven Tao had immediately attacked everyone here. So they may join forces to deal with it first. Just as Little Sky had said, if Blood Maiden and those two experts from the large world joined forces, then dealing with that Eye of the Heaven Tao would really not be a huge problem. Xianxia looked up at the sky and said, "Who do you think will win?" Little Sky spoke as if it was obvious. "That woman, of course." Xianxia gazed at her. "Why?" Little Sky shrugged. "I don't know. In any case, I think she'll win. Moreover, it probably won't take very long. Alright, I'm going back in to enjoy myself. Be careful." As soon as she finished speaking, her figure shot into Xianxia's chest. Bang! Suddenly, the entire area shook violently like a huge explosion had occurred. Xianxia was shocked and hurriedly looked up. He saw a woman walking down slowly from the sky, and there were two pillars of blood surging incessantly towards her from the area behind her. It was Blood Maiden, of course. Xianxia asked, "Where are they?" She replied, "See those two pillars of blood behind me?" Xianxia glanced at them. At this moment, they were ceaselessly surging down from the sky and entering Blood Maiden. Blood Maiden added, "It's their blood." Xianxia was at a loss for words. Blood Maiden said, "I can't suppress my cultivation any longer. I have to advance right now. Protect me and don't let anyone disturb me. All right?" Xianxia hurriedly patted his chest and guaranteed, "Don't worry. No one can disturb you while I'm here." Protecting her was naturally not a problem for him right now. Those two Rebirth Realm experts were dead, so no demon beast or human expert would dare to come here now. Blood Maiden nodded slightly, and then she slowly closed her eyes. After that, her aura suddenly started to become violent. Obviously, she was going to charge into the Rebirth Realm. However, a gray-robed old man suddenly appeared in the sky. The gray-robed old man's gaze descended onto Blood Maiden. "Sure enough, it's as the Oracle expected. You would absorb their blood. Ha ha ha. The blood of two Rebirth Realm experts is extremely pure. No wonder you aren't able to suppress your cultivation anymore." Meanwhile, Blood Maiden glanced at the gray-robed old man. But it only took a moment for her to withdraw her gaze. After that, she gazed at Xianxia. "Remember what you just said?" As soon as she finished speaking, she paused for a moment and added, "Men should keep their word." Xianxia was at a loss for words. Xianxia instantly revealed a bitter expression when he heard her. He'd thought that once those two Rebirth Realm experts from the large world were killed, there would be no other human or demon beast here that could pose a threat to them. After all, Blood Maiden was known throughout this place, and the humans and demon beasts here would definitely not dare to come here. However, he hadn't expected that another old man would suddenly arrive here. Obviously, since the old man dared to come here, he was definitely at the Rebirth Realm at least. Moreover, since he'd come by himself, his strength was definitely superior to those two from before. Stop a Rebirth Realm expert? Xianxia laughed bitterly. Can I even do that? He hadn't tried, but he was very well aware that his chances of success were absolutely slim. The old man didn't even spare a glance at Xianxia. His gaze was constantly locked onto Blood Maiden. "Blood Maiden, we've been waiting a long time for you to charge into the Rebirth Realm. We even didn't hesitate to sacrifice 2 people so that you could absorb their blood and then advance into the rebirth realm. You didn't disappoint us. As expected, you couldn't resist the temptation before you and absorbed their blood. It was a trap. At this point, Xianxia realized that those 2 fellows had actually been sent here to die. The large world had sacrificed them to make Blood Maiden absorb their blood, and then become unable to suppress her cultivation further. However, there was one thing he didn't really understand. Xianxia looked up at the old man. There's something I don't understand. Why did you choose to sacrifice 2 rebirth realm experts? You could have just joined forces against her. Why sacrifice 2 rebirth realm experts? The 3 of us? The old man shook his head. You don't know how strong she is. You know, no less than 7 rebirth realm experts joined forces against her all those years ago. But do you know what the outcome was? She killed 5 of them on her own, and the remaining 2 were heavily injured. They died not too long after the battle. So, not to mention the 3 of us, even 5 rebirth realm experts may not be able to kill her. Xianxia gasped when he heard this. 7 rebirth realm experts. She actually killed 7 rebirth realm experts on her own. How heaven-defying was that? Xianxia wasn't the only one who was shocked. Lian Banzwang was extremely shocked as well. She knew Blood Maiden was very strong, and it was obvious from how Blood Maiden had killed that demon beast all those years ago. But she hadn't expected Blood Maiden's strength to be that terrifying. She's killed 7 rebirth realm experts on her own. The rebirth realm, not the dualism realm. Killing 7 rebirth realm experts on her own was absolutely terrifying. Meanwhile, the old man continued. So, even if we knew where she was, and we knew where the other women from the Nether Pavilion are, we still didn't send any dualism and rebirth realm experts down here. Because even 10 rebirth realm experts would probably be insufficient to kill them. After all, besides the first and second hall masters, those eyes of their third hall master are extremely terrifying as well. The third hall master. He was referring to Blind Maiden, of course. Actually, Xianxia was very curious about Blind Maiden's eyes as well. However, he hadn't asked, because he felt that it was quite rude to ask. Now that he heard the old man speak about it, he knew that her eyes weren't ordinary. Otherwise, a rebirth realm expert would display such fear towards it. Meanwhile, the old man added, sacrificing 2 rebirth realm experts will make her unable to suppress her cultivation. Once that happens, then not to mention a rebirth realm expert, even a dualism realm expert can kill her. Because if she wants to advance, she must make a trip through the cycle of reincarnation. She can't move throughout that process. Just like this very moment, she has entered her own cycle of reincarnation. While it would only be a process for someone with her strength and mental strength, and she'll even be able to recover in 2 hours or so. However, so long as she does enter her cycle of reincarnation, it would only take a breath of time for me to kill her. The old man chuckled at this point. So long as she's dead, killing those others from the Nether Pavilion will be much easier. Xianxia finally came to a complete understanding. Just as Nether Maiden had said in the past, the experts from the large world weren't fools. Besides the fact that their cultivations would be suppressed, the reason they hadn't sent true experts down to the lower dimensions was that they feared Blood Maiden and the first Hall Master of the Nether Pavilion. So, their main objective was Blood Maiden. They hadn't hesitated to wait until now and even send 2 experts to their deaths, just to kill Blood Maiden. All of it was done for the sake of killing Blood Maiden. Xianxia could imagine how much those experts of the large world feared Blood Maiden. Actually, it made sense. After all, she possessed the might of a domain. It's over now. The old man suddenly shook his head and waved his hand, causing a wave of energy to shoot down towards Blood Maiden. Right as that wave of energy shot towards Blood Maiden, a ray of sword energy tore through the air and struck it, and the wave of energy was instantly obliterated. At the same time, Xianxia appeared in front of her. He would naturally not just watch as the old man killed her. If he chose to stand by idly now, then even he would look down on himself. It was like how Nether Maiden and the others hadn't just watched as White Deer Academy was destroyed by the joint forces of the evil faction and the other powers in the Radiant Dimension. At that time, they could have stood by idly and allowed the destruction of White Deer Academy. But Nether Maiden and the others hadn't done that. Why? Because they treated Yang Yi as their friend. Now, Blood Maiden was in trouble, so how could he just stand by idly? He didn't dare guarantee that he could stop the old man. But he would try his best. Only then would he have a clear conscience. Lian Banzwang hesitated for a moment, and then she went over to Yang Ye's side. She could choose to leave, but she hadn't, because she was very well aware that if she wanted to leave this place, then she had to stay with Yang Yi and Blood Maiden. Yang Yi and Blood Maiden were the only ones here who could leave this place. She had a very good chance of leaving if she stayed with them. But if she left right now, she would be trapped here forever. She was gambling. For the sake of her freedom, she was gambling with her life. Yang Yi glanced at Lian Banzwang and remained silent. He naturally understood her intentions. But help was exactly what he needed right now. She was a dualism realm expert and was even stronger than him. So, if he had her help, he would have a better chance at keeping the old man busy until Blood Maiden woke up. Otherwise, it was truly difficult for him to keep a rebirth realm expert busy on his own. Even if his overall strength was much stronger than before, he was still facing a rebirth realm expert. Even though the old man had been suppressed to the dualism realm, his mental state belonged to an expert at the rebirth realm, and it was just his cultivation which had been suppressed. So, the old man's mastery in battle hadn't vanished at all. So, he couldn't treat the old man as a dualism realm expert. He had to treat the old man as a rebirth realm expert. The old man suddenly started to chuckle when he saw Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang protecting Blood Maiden. I never expected I would personally encounter a situation where ants try to stop me, but it's fine. Since both of you are with her, your relationship is definitely not normal. As far as we're concerned, everyone related to the Nether Pavilion deserves death. As soon as he finished speaking, he pressed his right hand down slowly. Just that action made Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang's expressions become extremely solemn, because they felt like the sky was about to collapse. A wisp of coldness flashed through Yang Ye's eyes. He flipped his palm, and the ancient sheath appeared in his grasp. There was a sword within the sheath. After that, he drew the sword and swung it. OM! A sword howl resounded, and then a ray of sword energy shot up into the air. Two overlapped heaven rends. At his present realm of cultivation, executing two overlapped heaven rends was absolutely easy. Moreover, his current physical strength and cultivation made the might of his overlapped heaven rends much stronger than before. A sword howl resounded, and a ray of sword energy shot through the air. The pressure from the old man instantly vanished, and the sword energy didn't slow down at all and instantly arrived before the old man. Surprise flashed through the old man's eyes when he saw Yang Ye's attack. Your sword technique isn't bad. Unfortunately, you're too weak. If you could overlap 5, then perhaps it would be a slight threat to me. Unfortunately, you can't. As soon as he finished speaking, he stretched out his right hand and waved it lightly. In an instant, Yang Ye's sword energy was obliterated. How strong! Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly from the sight of this, and his eyes were filled with an extremely solemn expression. Actually, he hadn't had any wishful thoughts that his attack could harm the old man at all. But he hadn't expected his attack to be destroyed with such ease. It had truly been absolutely easy, and the old man didn't seem to have used any strength at all. Now, he understood the gap between him and a rebirth realm expert. If the old man's cultivation hadn't been suppressed, he might not even have the ability to fight back. Even though it was quite a blow to his confidence, it was a fact. However, Yang Yi couldn't retreat. Once he did, it represented that Blind Maiden would die. If there was no one to protect, he would have to flee when he couldn't win a battle. After all, only a fool wouldn't flee. However, he had someone to protect right now, so he had to fight even if he couldn't win. Meanwhile, the old man shook his head. Weak. Weak to the point that I'm not interested in fighting you. Yang Yi took a deep breath, and then his profound energy started surging madly. A moment later, his figure transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the old man. A wisp of ridicule arose on the corners of the old man's mouth, and then he waved his right hand. A wave of invisible energy rippled forward, and it instantly blasted Yang Yi around 3 kilometers away. Lian Banzwang didn't stand by idly, of course. She charged at the old man as well. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly, and his profound energy surged madly. At the same time, his quasi-returnal rank sword intent and slaughter intent surged like a torrent into the sword precursor. A moment later, Yang Yi closed his eyes. At the moment Yang Yi closed his eyes, the old man's expression suddenly changed drastically, and then he swiftly looked towards Yang Yi. Crack! A clear and loud crack resounded. The space around Yang Yi had cracked apart. The rebirth sword. At this moment, Yang Yi had executed the rebirth sword. Yang Yi was very well aware that the old man's strength far surpassed his own. So, he would only be making a fool of himself if he used an ordinary attack. Thus, he'd immediately executed the rebirth sword which he'd just mastered. The reason his attack could crack space apart was that he'd enhanced it with quasi-returnal rank sword intent and slaughter intent. The two intents had caused its might to multiply numerous times. When the old man recovered from his shock and gazed at Yang Yi, the sword in Yang Ye's grasp had vanished. Bang! A loud explosion resounded in front of the old man, and then Lian Banzwang watched with shock as the old man was blasted around 10 kilometers away. Once the old man stopped himself, he stretched open his palm, and there was a sword at the center of it. The sword had stabbed through the old man's palm, and it wasn't sitting still there. It was still spinning at high speeds. Moreover, it was moving forward, inch by inch, into the old man's palm. It didn't take long for the sword to shoot through the old man's palm. A string of blood sprayed from the old man's right shoulder. The sword precursor had the sword spirit within it, so it instantly transformed into a ray of light that flew back into Yang Ye's grasp. A moment of silence ensued, and then a wisp of blood flowed out from the corner of the old man's mouth. Even though the attack had merely pierced through the old man's palm and shoulder, the force within the sword had instantly shot through the old man's entire body when it came into contact with his palm. So, it hadn't just injured the old man's palm and shoulder, it had even injured him internally. The old man gazed at Yang Yi. Truly unbelievable. I was actually injured by a semi-deity. Yang Yi glanced at his sword and said, "Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kill you. Since you're alive, I'll have to suffer now." "Kill me?" The old man was stunned, and then he shook his head and chuckled. "How laughable! A semi-deity actually wants to kill me? How absurd. The old man was about to speak when Yang Yi suddenly closed his eyes. A moment later, Yang Ye's sword vanished once more. The old man's expression changed, and he swiftly slapped his left palm forward. Bang! An explosion resounded before the old man was blasted away once more. This time, a hole appeared in the old man's left palm, and it went all the way through his left shoulder. At this moment, both of the old man's palms and shoulders were bleeding. Yang Yi shook his head. What a pity. 2 attacks. Once he attained the semi-deity realm, the volume of profound energy he possessed was sufficient to execute the rebirth sword twice. He'd intentionally launched a surprise attack while talking just now. Unfortunately, the old man's reaction speed was too swift. So, the sword which was aimed at the old man's heart had been stopped by the old man's left palm. Now, he didn't have the strength to execute the rebirth sword again. The old man glanced at his left palm, and then he looked up at Yang Yi. "You've really surprised me. Needless to say, I was blind this time. If it was an ordinary dualism realm expert in my place, then even if those 2 attacks of yours couldn't kill that expert, it would heavily injure that expert. Unfortunately, I'm not at the dualism realm. Now, your profound energy has been exhausted. Do you have any other moves?" Yang Yi flipped his palm and put both the ancient sheath and sword precursor away. After that, he stomped his right foot down, and the space below him instantly started trembling violently while his figure vanished on the spot. He was in front of the old man when his figure appeared once more, and he didn't waste his breath and just slammed his fist at the old man. A wisp of ridicule curled up on the corners of the old man's mouth. He clenched his injured right fist and similarly slammed a punch at Yang Yi. Boom! As soon as their fists came into contact, an explosion resounded. At the same time, Yang Yi was blasted very far away. At the same time, Lian Banzwang immediately appeared in front of the old man, and the multicolored ribbon in her right grasp swept down at the old man. At the moment she swung the ribbon, it transformed into a pillar of multicolored light that instantly appeared above the old man. A wisp of ferocity flashed through the old man's eyes, and then a terrifying aura surged out explosively from within him. Bang! Lian Banzwang's ribbon was blasted into pieces while she herself was slammed over 3 kilometers away. At the moment that Lian Banzwang had been blasted away, Yang Yi suddenly appeared before the old man, and he slammed his fist forward again. The old man refused to display any weakness, and he slammed his fist against Yang Yi's fist. Bang! Yang Yi was instantly blasted over 3 kilometers away. Your strength isn't bad. Meanwhile, the old man suddenly spoke. Unfortunately, it's still too weak for me. It's time to put an end to all of this. You? The old man stopped abruptly because Yang Yi had suddenly appeared in front of him again, and then another punch slammed down at him. At the same time, Lian Banzwang charged at the old man. You're courting death. The old man clenched his right fist and slammed it forward. Bang! A loud explosion resounded. As expected, Yang Yi was blasted away again, and the impact even blasted away Lian Banzwang's approaching figure. However, every single time he was blasted away, Yang Yi charged over to the old man again. As the old man fought, he suddenly noticed that Yang Yi's physical strength and defenses had actually far surpassed his expectations. It wasn't just that. Even Yang Yi's recovery had far surpassed his expectations. As far as he was concerned, Yang Yi was definitely injured every single time he punched Yang Yi away. However, as the battle dragged on, he noticed that Yang Yi seemed to be completely unharmed. Meanwhile, Yang Yi arrived in front of him again. Just like before, Yang Yi slammed his fist at the old man. The old man subconsciously slammed his fist at Yang Yi. There was a strange expression in Yang Yi's eyes when he saw the old man's fist approach him again. Boom! Crack! As soon as their fists collided, something unexpected occurred. While Yang Yi was blasted away again, the old man's entire arm was actually blasted away. At the same time, the powerful force within Yang Yi's punch pushed the old man around 300 m back. Elemental breaker. It was the elemental breaker, of course. The reason Yang Yi hadn't executed it right away was because he wanted to numb the old man to his attacks. He wanted the old man to put down his guard. Because the old man had been extremely vigilant in the beginning. If he'd executed the elemental breaker technique while the old man was vigilant, then it would have definitely been incapable of causing any material effect. He could only take the old man by surprise with the elemental breaker technique if the old man had put down his guard. Sure enough, Yang Yi had succeeded. He'd blasted off the old man's arm with just one punch. The old man had an extremely ferocious expression on his face right now, and he looked up at Yang Yi. Needless to say, he'd been tricked by the ant who stood before him. It was an embarrassment, a huge embarrassment, because he'd actually been repeatedly injured by a semi-deity. I'll tear you into pieces. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man transformed into a ray of light that shot towards Yang Yi. Everywhere he passed, even space started to warp. Lian Banzwang's expression changed slightly from the sight of this, and she hurriedly said, "Watch out!" Bang! As soon as she finished speaking, Yang Yi was blasted away. However, it didn't take long for him to stop. At this moment, there was a casket lid in his grasp. Lian Banzwang heaved a sigh of relief when she saw the casket lid. After all, the consequences would have been unimaginable if Yang Yi didn't have that casket lid. Lian Banzwang wasn't the only one who heaved a sigh of relief. Yang Yi had done the same. Fortunately, he had the casket lid. Otherwise, he would have been crippled even if he could escape death. Because even with the casket lid, he felt like his entire body had cracked open. His body was at the undying realm, and he'd even cultivated the undying elemental body. So, his body was even much stronger than the rock titans at Rock Mountain. However, his body was still cracked open after he used the casket lid to protect himself. Obviously, if he didn't have the casket lid, then the old man's full strength was very likely to have blasted Yang Yi into pieces. Even though the old man had been suppressed to the dualism realm, His strength wasn't something that a dualism realm expert could come close to. Lian Banzwang was at the dualism realm too, but she was completely suppressed by the old man. Perhaps the old man was inferior to Blood Maiden, but he was much stronger than Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang. Fortunately, Yang Yi had no intention to kill the old man. He only sought to keep the old man busy. So long as he succeeded in keeping the old man busy until Blood Maiden regained her consciousness, then his side would be victorious. Yang Yi took a deep breath when he thought up to this point, and then he started to use the bit of profound energy he'd recovered to repair his body. He had energy pearls, so he could restore all his profound energy in an instant, but it wasn't the time to use it. The old man's gaze descended onto the shield Yang Yi was using. He hadn't expected his lethal blow to be actually stopped by that casket lid. Based on his current realm of cultivation, it wouldn't be that easy to kill Yang Yi while Yang Yi had the casket lid. Their plan was guaranteed success. Yet now, a problem had appeared in their plan. The old man glanced at Blood Maiden. He was very well aware that if she woke up, then not to mention killing her, even he would die here. Suddenly, something unexpected occurred. The space above the old man suddenly shook slightly, and then a middle-aged man with a spear in his grasp appeared above the old man. The old man gazed at the middle-aged man, and a wisp of surprise flashed through his eyes. "You Ming, what are you doing here?" The middle-aged man glanced at Blood Maiden and said, "The oracle said that you will encounter problems here, so she told me to stop fighting for that treasure and come here immediately. As expected, you really are having some trouble. She still isn't dead." Two rebirth realm experts. Both Yang Yi and Lian Banzwang's face turned extremely unsightly. Suddenly, Lian Banzwang turned around and transformed into a ray of multicolored light that vanished into the sky. She'd fled. Yang Ye's face grew even more unsightly. Actually, Yang Yi understood her decision. If it was just a single rebirth realm expert, then they had a chance to buy time until Blood Maiden woke up. However, there were two rebirth realm experts now. Two. Could be said that his side had no chance of winning. Under such circumstances, it was naturally very normal that she'd fled. After all, there was no connection between Lian Banzwang and Blood Maiden, so she would definitely not give her life away for Blood Maiden. What should I do now? Fight two on my own? Or flee as well? Fleeing was naturally impossible. The old man had been infuriated during the previous battle, so the old man would definitely not allow him to escape. Moreover, not to mention whether he could flee, even if he could, once the old man killed Blood Maiden and came looking for him, how would he resist the joint forces of two rebirth realm experts? So, his goal right now was to wait until Blood Maiden regained her consciousness. Only then would he be able to survive. However, he couldn't even fight a rebirth realm expert in a one-on-one battle, let alone a two-on-one battle. When force couldn't resolve the problem, Yang Yi decided to use words. After all, discussion was a method to resolve problems as well. So, once he thought up to this point, Yang Yi gazed at the old man and middle-aged man, and he smiled. "I think that we can sit down and have a chat. After all, more enmity is usually unable to resolve the prior enmity. Don't you think so too?" The old man spoke gloomily. "If you want to buy time, can you use more intelligent methods?" He'd been exposed. However, Yang Yi displayed no embarrassment, and he spoke seriously. "Actually, I'm saying that for your own good. Do you really think she didn't make any other preparations? How laughable." Meanwhile, the old man laughed with ridicule. "You actually want to use words against us at a time like this? Are you trying to insult us?" Yang Yi was about to speak when the middle-aged man by the old man's side spoke abruptly. "Don't waste more time. The important matter at hand is to deal with her." As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. A ferocious glow flashed through Yang Ye's eyes, and he raised the casket lid with both hands and slammed it forward. Boom! An explosion resounded as Yang Yi was blasted 3 kilometers back again. As for the middle-aged man, he was merely pushed around 300 m back. Even though the middle-aged man, Yu Ming, had the upper hand, there was a trace of disbelief in his eyes. "You actually stopped my attack." He was shocked, of course, because Yang Yi was just a semi-deity, and a semi-deity was simply weaker than an ant to experts at his level. Even if his cultivation and strength were suppressed, he still wasn't an existence that a semi-deity could resist. Or it should be said that even ordinary dualism realm experts couldn't fight him. However, Yang Yi had stopped his attack and wasn't injured by it. It didn't take long for Yu Ming's gaze to descend onto the casket lid in Yang Ye's grasp. A wisp of surprise flashed through his eyes. It's not ordinary at all. No wonder you were able to resist my attack. However, you won't be so lucky next time. As soon as he finished speaking, he shot towards Yang Yi again. This time, the old man didn't stand by idly and charged at Yang Yi as well. Obviously, they didn't want to waste time. 2 rebirth realm experts. Yang Yi took a deep breath while a wisp of resolve flashed through his eyes. A moment later, he flipped his palm, and a diagram appeared above him. As soon as the diagram appeared, the scene here changed. It didn't take long for them to appear within space. The stellar sword diagram. Yang Yi intended to use the stellar sword diagram. He had no other choice. If he didn't utilize it right now, then he would have no chance to win. He was very well aware that he couldn't resist the joint forces of 2 rebirth realm experts. He would be no match for them even with the help of the casket lid. Perhaps he could protect himself from them by hiding within the casket, but what about Blood Maiden? Yang Ye's eyes suddenly lit up when he thought up to this point. What should he do about Blood Maiden? He could hide her in the casket. However, it didn't take long for this thought of his to be discarded. If both he and Blood Maiden hid within the casket, then who would deal with these 2 rebirth realm experts? He couldn't allow Blood Maiden to be disturbed in the slightest right now. If they hid within the casket and those 2 rebirth realm experts attacked the casket madly, then both he and Blood Maiden would really be finished. He could take the casket and run, but could he outrun them? He couldn't. So, at this moment, he had no choice but to go head-on against them. If he was going to go head-on against them, he had to use the stellar sword diagram. When the surroundings were transformed into an expanse of outer space, the old man and Yu Ming's faces became solemn. Obviously, they'd sensed danger. Meanwhile, Yu Ming gazed at Yang Yi and spoke in a low voice. "This is Jian Wuji's stellar sword diagram." The old man's expression changed. He hadn't expected it to actually be the stellar sword diagram. It hadn't just displayed extraordinary strength in the lower dimensions, it was extremely renowned in the large world as well. Of course, it was because of Jian Wuji. When Jian Wuji arrived at the large world, he defended a powerful sect, and it ceaselessly dispatched experts to kill Jian Wuji and the sword god's pavilion that Jian Wuji had created. In the end, Jian Wuji went to that sect on his own and activated the stellar sword diagram there, enveloping that entire sect beneath it. The final outcome was quite amusing because they didn't fight. That sect, which had 8 rebirth realm experts, had chosen to surrender, and they swore on their souls that they wouldn't look for trouble with Jian Wuji and Sword God's pavilion again. That battle raised Jian Wuji's reputation to a completely new level, and it was that battle which allowed the world to know of the stellar sword diagram. 8 rebirth realm experts didn't even have the courage to fight Jian Wuji and the diagram. How terrifying was it to be actually capable of doing that? At this moment, both of them hadn't expected it to be in Yang Ye's possession. The most terrifying part was that Yang Yi was a sword cultivator, and he could utilize it. So they didn't dare act carelessly. If their cultivations weren't suppressed, then they wouldn't really fear it. After all, Yang Yi didn't possess the same realm of cultivation as Jian Wuji. Yet now, their cultivation and strength had been suppressed. So, they didn't dare act carelessly when facing Yang Yi, who could activate the stellar sword diagram. Yang Yi didn't hesitate at all, and he intended to activate it. He couldn't hesitate as well because losing lifespan was better than losing his life. Right when he was about to summon the stellar sword energy, 6 terrifying auras appeared here. Yang Yi was slightly stunned, and then he put the stellar sword diagram away, causing the surroundings to return to normal. Yang Yi was shocked when he saw the owners of those 6 auras because he actually knew 3 of them. They were Lian Banzwang, who'd just left, Demon Wu, who'd chased after him a while back, and the Lava Titan. As for the other 3, they were an old man in a luxurious robe and 2 huge demon beasts. Yang Yi was stunned by this scene, and then he looked at Lian Banzwang. Lian Banzwang glanced at him. They are willing to help, but they have a request, and it's to make Blood Maiden take them with her. Of course, your agreement works as well. She hadn't forgotten that the mysterious young girl by Yang Ye's side was friends with the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Yang Yi immediately came to an understanding. Lian Banzwang hadn't fled, and she'd gone to get help instead. It made sense because it could be considered her only chance to leave this place, so how could she possibly give up that easily? However, she was very well aware that just Yang Yi and her strength was utterly insufficient to deal with two Rebirth Realm experts. The only way they could resist two Rebirth Realm experts was by getting help. She knew that if she used an opportunity to leave as the bait, then many demon beasts and humans here wouldn't be able to refuse it. Sure enough, even Demon Wu, who had enmity with her, couldn't refuse such an opportunity. Yang Yi glanced at them and said, "I agree." He naturally had to agree. He didn't want to use the stellar sword diagram if possible. After all, losing lifespan was terrible. Demon Wu suddenly asked, "You can make decisions for her?" Yang Yi spoke indifferently. "She's my second sister. What do you think?" His second sister. Demon Wu's eyelids twitched. At the same time that he felt shocked, he felt slightly fearful. He hadn't expected Yang Yi to know Blood Maiden. If he was aware that Yang Yi knew Blood Maiden, then he wouldn't have gone to look for trouble with Yang Yi. After all, he didn't want Blood Maiden to look for trouble with him. Meanwhile, Yiming spoke abruptly. "We have no intention to become enemies with all of you. Our target is only Blood Maiden. As for leaving this place, so long as all of you don't interfere, we can help you leave." "You can help us leave?" Meanwhile, the old man in a luxurious robe laughed with ridicule. "How laughable! Do you think we're fools? If your cultivation wasn't suppressed, then I might believe you. But now your strength has been suppressed, so you can't fight the Eye of the Heaven Dao. Since both of you dared to come in here, you definitely have a way to get out. However, it's definitely not leaving by force, and it's some other special method. Such special methods will definitely not work on us. After all, we're being imprisoned here while both of you are outsiders. If you leave, the Eye of the Heaven Dao won't fight both of you until it dies. But if we try to leave, the Eye of the Heaven Dao will definitely do everything it can to stop us." When he spoke up to this point, he gazed at Blood Maiden. "We can only rely on her to leave, because she can suppress the Eye of the Heaven Dao, just like the Unfettered One did." Yu Ming and the other man's expressions instantly turned unsightly, because it was just as the old man in a luxurious robe had said. Both of them really were unable to fight the Eye of the Heaven Dao, nor did they dare to risk their lives against it. After all, if they forced it to detonate itself and mark them, then they would be finished. Because if such a powerful Eye of the Heaven Dao was forced to detonate itself and mark them, then they would definitely suffer a horrible death even if they returned to the large world. So, it wasn't realistic for them to think about suppressing the Eye of the Heaven Dao and taking these fellows out with them. A moment of silence ensued before Yu Ming suddenly took a step forward, and then he glanced at them. "Since that's the case, then let's fight. Let me see how capable foreign prisoners like you are. I'll kill you with 10 attacks." Suddenly, a voice resounded. Everyone here was stunned, and they turned to look. Besides Yang Yi, the expressions of everyone else changed when they saw the person who spoke those words. It wasn't Blood Maiden. Yang Yi turned to look, and he saw an old man walking slowly in their direction. The old man was extremely old, and his brows were already snow-white while wrinkles covered his face. It seemed like he'd experienced the passage of many centuries. Coupled with his hunched back, it made the old man seem extremely old. Lian Banzwang and the others had extremely solemn expressions on their faces when they saw the old man, and there was even a trace of fear in their eyes. Yang Yi had quite a solemn expression on his face because the old man felt unfathomable to him. Similarly, Yu Qing and the old man by his side had extremely solemn expressions on their faces. Obviously, the old man felt dangerous to them. Yang Yi asked Lian Banzwang, "Who is that?" Lian Banzwang spoke solemnly. "A very strong and mysterious person, but also a person who keeps a very low profile. He was the #1 expert here, but he fell into a deep slumber. So, that demon beast which Blood Maiden killed took his place. We don't know how strong he is, and only the unfettered one does. She gazed at Yang Yi and continued, Do you know what the unfettered one said after fighting him? Yang Yi asked curiously. What? Very good. Lian Banzwang said. He said very good. Moreover, he said that if that old man can overcome his own limits, then he would be willing to fight the old man again. Very good. Yang Yi had a solemn expression on his face. After all, it wasn't easy to make the unfettered one say someone was not bad. Yang Yi gazed at the old man. It didn't take long for the old man to arrive here. The old man glanced at Yu Ming and said, I haven't encountered many experts upon arriving at this universe of yours, but the experts I've encountered in this universe aren't few as well. Amongst those experts I've met, I only acknowledge 2 of them. No, it should be 2.5. One of them is that fellow, the unfettered one. His attainments in the Sword Dao are extraordinary, and I'm far inferior to him. As for the other person, it's better not to mention that person. He gazed at Blood Maiden at this point, and then he continued, As for the half, it's her. Her natural talent and ability to control the blood domain to such an extent is something I can't compare to. Meanwhile, Yu Ming spoke in a low voice. Who are you? Who am I? The old man chuckled. Just as you've said, I'm just a prisoner. He gazed at Yang Yi at this point. Young brother, I don't want to stay here anymore as well. I'll help you and Blood Maiden stop them. So, can you take me along once she recovers and leaves? Of course. Yang Yi nodded. But there's something I don't understand. Even your strength is insufficient to leave this place. The old man chuckled and said, I can. However, I'll die as soon as I leave. Yang Yi was puzzled. Why? The old man said, We should have died all those years ago, but that existence was kind-hearted and spared us. Even though we didn't have to die, we were imprisoned here for eternity. As far as your universe is concerned, we're invaders and sinners. If we force our way out of this place, we'll be targeted by the Lord of the Heaven Dao of this universe. So we need someone to keep us concealed. Only 2 people have such ability, and it's the unfettered one and her, Blood Maiden. Because both of them have comprehended a domain, they can utilize their domain to conceal our presence from the Lord of the Heaven Dao. At this moment, Yang Yi was finally sure. He was sure that they weren't from this universe. All of these people, including the man who gave him the undying elemental body technique and the old man beneath the pool of water, were not from this universe. They were from another universe. Or it should be said that besides a few locals of the ominous territory, everyone else here was from another universe. All of them had committed crimes. Just like the old man had said, they were invaders. Obviously, they'd failed and they were imprisoned for it. Meanwhile, the old man added, Even though I can defeat that eye of the Heaven Dao here, I can't suppress it. Moreover, if I try to force my way out, then it'll fight me to the death. Perhaps it might even make more eyes of the Heaven Dao to come here. However, Blood Maiden is different. If she recovers her strength at the Rebirth Realm, then she can completely suppress the eye of the Heaven Dao with the combination of her strength and the strength of her blood domain. Yang Yi finally came to an understanding. They wanted to use Blood Maiden's blood domain. A domain could conceal their auras, so the Lord of the Heaven Dao of this universe wouldn't be able to detect them. Otherwise, even if they could escape this place, the Lord of the Heaven Dao would pursue them incessantly. Yang Yi pondered deeply for a few moments and said, I can agree on her behalf and promise that she'll take all of you out of here. However, once all of you leave this place, we'll leave this universe of yours. The old man added, All those years ago, it was greed that caused us to fall to this state. Now, we won't do it again. Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He had definitely not thought about drawing them over to his side, because that was utterly impossible. Their strength was much stronger than his, so it was impossible for them to agree to follow him. Moreover, even if they did, he wouldn't dare to accept them. All of them were criminals. If the Lord of the Heaven Dao noticed their presence, then the consequences. He didn't know how strong the Lord of the Heaven Dao was, but since the old man was so afraid, He could imagine how terrifying the Lord of the Heaven Tao was. Yang Yi had no doubt that it was absolutely not an existence that he could resist. Go against the Lord of the Heaven Tao. He wasn't mad. So it was best if they left this universe. However, Yang Yi also wondered if he would encounter any problems because he was helping them escape their prison. Fortunately, even if problems did arise, it would be Blood Maiden's business, and she would definitely be able to resolve that trouble. Suddenly, the old man standing in the distance spoke. Your name is Yang Yi, right? Yang Yi turned to look at the old man. What? The old man stared at Yang Yi for a long time and said, I never expected that our plan, which was guaranteed success, would actually fail because of you. Based on the natural talent and strength you possess, I presume it won't be long before you need to ascend to the large world. Unfortunately, my war pavilion just happens to be guarding it this time. Remember my words. The moment you ascend to the large world is the moment you, Yang Yi, will die. As soon as he finished speaking, both his and Yu Ming's figures started to become ethereal. They were rebirth realm experts, so they were no fools. They were very well aware that they couldn't kill Blood Maiden when facing the experts of the ominous territory. So they decisively chose to flee, because if they didn't, then they would definitely die once Blood Maiden woke up. Stop them! Yang Ye's expression changed when he noticed that they were trying to leave, and Yang Yi immediately drew his sword and swung it. His sword energy was extremely swift and instantly arrived before Yu Ming and the old man. However, his sword energy just shot through them and wasn't able to do anything. Yang Ye's face instantly became gloomy. It's impossible, the old man with a hunched back said. I can kill them if they stay and fight. However, if they flee, then I can't do anything to them. Because I can't leave this place, but it's absolutely easy for them to leave. Because they possess powerful spatial treasures that are able to travel through space with ease. Yang Yi fell silent for a short while, and then he shook his head and said, It's fine. If worse comes to worse, I'll just do as the Unfettered One and Jian Wuji did. I'll just fight my way up there. The old man glanced at Yang Yi and smiled. You're very confident, but you have the right to be confident. Yang Yi smiled. Actually, if it's possible, I don't want to be in the limelight. But in life, there are many things that are beyond our control. He glanced at the people here and cupped his fist. Everyone, I thank you on behalf of my second sister. Don't worry. I'll definitely fulfill my promise to all of you. Those two rebirth realm experts hadn't retreated because of him. They'd retreated because of these experts in front of Yang Yi. It could be said that if they hadn't come, then he would have no choice but to fight with his life on the line. He wouldn't take everyone out of this place, but he would definitely take them out of this place. After all, one couldn't be ungrateful. The old man smiled. He was about to speak when he suddenly looked at Blood Maiden. She's awake. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, Blood Maiden suddenly opened her eyes. At the same time, an invisible wave of energy rippled out from her. Yang Yi and the others were caught off guard, and they were pushed around 300 m away. As for the old man with a hunched back, he was pushed around 50 m away. The rebirth realm. Everyone here had an extremely solemn expression on their faces. Blood Maiden was no ordinary rebirth realm expert. She was already so terrifying at the dualism realm, so now that she'd attained the rebirth realm, her strength would be. Blood Maiden stood up, glanced at everyone here and said, Thank you. All of them nodded to display that it was nothing worth mentioning. Blood Maiden nodded slightly, and then she looked at Yang Yi. I thought you would flee. Yang Yi was at a loss for words. Blood Maiden added, They have good judgment skills. Since you call me second sister, then I won't try to be courteous about it. She glanced at the others and continued, Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, Blood Maiden stretched her hands forward, and then pulled them in opposite directions. Just like that, the space before her was torn open, and it didn't take long for a spatial rift to appear here. Meanwhile, little sky, the eye of the Heaven Tao, appeared in the sky above them. After that, a wave of pressure rained down upon them. Lian Banzwang and the others became extremely vigilant when they saw the eye of the Heaven Tao. Blood Maiden glanced at it for a few moments, and then she stretched her right hand forward. In an instant, a veil of blood enveloped the eye of the Heaven Dao. Meanwhile, the eye of the Heaven Dao suddenly started to tremble violently. Xianxia's expression changed drastically at the sight of that, because that eye of the Heaven Dao intended to detonate itself. Blood Maiden frowned as well. Obviously, she hadn't expected the eye of the Heaven Dao to actually intend to detonate itself. Little Sky, stop this instant. Suddenly, a voice resounded from Xianxia's chest, and then Little Sky appeared before them. As soon as Little Sky appeared, the eye of the Heaven Dao immediately stopped trying to detonate itself. Little Sky instantly heaved a sigh of relief, and then she turned to look at Blood Maiden. Do you want to die? Xianxia was stunned as well. He hadn't expected Little Sky to provoke Blood Maiden. Little Sky usually had a very good temper, but she clearly seemed to be angry right now. Blood Maiden gazed at Little Sky and remained silent. Meanwhile, Little Sky walked over to Blood Maiden and looked her in the eyes. You think that you're very strong? Blood Maiden refused to show any weakness. I think I'm not bad. Little Sky gazed at Blood Maiden for a short while and then she nodded. Since you think you're very strong, then let me see how strong you are. As soon as she finished speaking, she looked up at Little Sky. Little Sky! Get help! Get help! Everyone here was stunned when they heard this. The eye of the Heaven Dao has help? Suddenly, the eye of the Heaven Dao in the sky trembled violently, and then the space beside it cracked open. It didn't take long for an eye to emerge from that rift in space. An eye of the Heaven Dao. An eye of the Heaven Dao that was around the same size as Little Sky emerged from that rift in space. However, that wasn't the end of it. More and more eyes of the Heaven Dao emerged from that spatial rift. In just a little over a dozen breaths of time, the sky was filled with over 100 eyes of the Heaven Dao. At this moment, the entire sky was covered in them. Wave after wave of pressure swept out from them. How terrifying was the pressure emanated from over 100 eyes of the Heaven Dao. In any case, even dualism realm experts weren't able to endure the pressure. Besides Blood Maiden, the bodies of everyone else here had gradually bent down, including the old man with a hunched back. However, he was in a comparatively better condition when compared to Lian Banzwang and the others. He wasn't in such an embarrassing state. As for Xianxia, he'd raised the casket lid above himself, so he was in a slightly better condition than Lian Banzwang and the others. At this moment, the expressions of everyone here had changed. Their faces were unsightly. Over 100 eyes of the Heaven Dao. If all of the eyes of the Heaven Dao attacked at once, then not to mention destroying the ominous territory, it was even possible for them to destroy the entire lower dimensions. These eyes of the Heaven Dao were weaker than the eye of the Heaven Dao in the large world. However, they were definitely much stronger than the eyes of the Heaven Dao in medium-sized worlds. So, not to mention a single Rebirth Realm expert, even 10 Rebirth Realm experts may not necessarily be able to resist them. Blood Maiden's eyes instantly narrowed slightly when she saw over 100 eyes of the Heaven Dao. Obviously, she hadn't expected such a scene as well. Little Sky glanced at Lian Banzwang and the others. Defy the heavens? You humans always speak about defying the heavens. But all of you don't know how tiny you are. When the heavens really decide to take all of you seriously, can you afford to go against the heavens? You can't. She gazed at Blood Maiden and continued, Are around 100 enough? If you think they aren't enough, Little Sky can call another 100 over. This universe has thousands of medium worlds and numerous hidden worlds. Little Sky can summon all the eyes of the Heaven Dao in those worlds. Blood Maiden looked at Little Sky. Who are you? Everyone else was looking at Little Sky. At this moment, all of them were extremely curious about Little Sky's identity. Earlier, Little Sky hadn't summoned help, but as soon as she showed herself, she'd immediately told Little Sky to get help. Even though it was because of Little Sky, all of them were aware that Little Sky was definitely a huge reason why Little Sky had been able to summon all of these eyes of the Heaven Dao. Xianxia didn't let Little Sky and Blood Maiden remain in confrontation. He walked over to Little Sky and said, We have no intention to kill Little Sky, and we just want to leave. That's why Second Sister suppressed it. but we never expected it to be so unyielding and choose to detonate itself. Little Sky replied, its mission is to guard these people. If you take them out of here by force, then it'll definitely detonate itself. Xianxia said, then can you tell it not to detonate itself and then let us leave? If it was anyone else, it would definitely be impossible, but he was talking to Little Sky. If she was willing to help, then it would definitely be possible. Because Little Sky had a very good relationship with Little Sky. Little Sky would definitely not give them face, but it would give Little Sky face. Little Sky glanced at Lian Banzwang and the others, and then she said, do you know why they were imprisoned here? Xianxia nodded. They are invaders. Little Sky shook her head. They killed countless people and eyes of the heaven Tao in our universe for their own personal gain. They should be dead. Meanwhile, the old man with a hunched back spoke abruptly. We know that we were wrong, but we've paid the price for our actions. We can swear with our souls that we'll leave this universe once we leave this place, and we will absolutely not take another step into this universe again. Please give us a chance to change. At this moment, he was very well aware that the only chance for them to leave this place wasn't Blood Maiden but Little Sky. Xianxia added, Little Sky, they've been imprisoned for very, very long. If it's possible, just let them out. You told me that both humans and demon beasts should be free, but they aren't free at all, right? Little Sky remained silent. Xianxia continued, if the Lord of the Heaven Tao wanted to kill them, they would have definitely been killed on the spot. But they were imprisoned instead. I think that the Lord of the Heaven Tao wanted to give them a chance to change their ways. What do you think? A long moment of silence passed before Little Sky suddenly glanced at the surroundings. This place really shouldn't exist anymore. Lian Banzwang and the others were delighted when they heard her, because now that she'd said that, it wouldn't be a problem for them to leave. Meanwhile, Little Sky added, but there's a condition. Xianxia hurriedly asked, what condition? Little Sky glanced at Lian Banzwang and the others, and then she said, many have realized their mistakes, and these people can be let out of this place. However, many others might not think they'd made any mistakes, and they may even be filled with resentment. These people can't be allowed to leave. Of course, Xianxia continued, but how do we know if they are determined to change their ways? I will know. Little Sky continued, no one can deceive me. As soon as she finished speaking, she glanced at Lian Banzwang and the others. All of you have no resentment in your hearts. This proves that all of you are very well aware that you deserved such punishment, and it proves that you regret your actions. So all of you can leave. Lian Banzwang and the others were overjoyed when they heard Little Sky. However, Demon Wu suddenly asked, can you make decisions for the Lord of the Heaven Tao? The smiles on their faces gradually vanished when they heard Demon Wu, and then they gazed at Little Sky. All of them were very well aware that Little Sky's identity and background was definitely extraordinary, because she had such a good relationship with an Eye of the Heaven Tao. However, that was just a good relationship, and letting them go was not a minor matter. Perhaps even that Eye of the Heaven Tao, Little Sky, didn't have the right to authorize it. So, did Little Sky have such authority? Little Sky replied, I don't know if I can. All of them felt speechless. Meanwhile, Little Sky added, but I can give it a try. Little Sky and the others are quite nice. Xianxia and the others' faces darkened. Nice? The eyes of the Heaven Tao are nice? Please, they wouldn't even allow us to converse with them. However, the eyes of the Heaven Tao really were nice to Little Sky. Little Sky flashed over to Little Sky, and then she waved her hand at the other eyes of the Heaven Tao around Little Sky. Those eyes of the Heaven Tao seemed to recognize her too, and they started moving up and down as well to greet her. Moreover, some eyes of the Heaven Tao seemed jubilant. Little Sky chuckled, gazed at Little Sky, and spoke in a slightly reproachful tone. You fool! If you're no match for someone, then can't you get help? You just have to detonate yourself? You're such a fool. Little Sky trembled slightly, and then ripples flowed from it. Obviously, it was expressing something to her. Little Sky sighed softly, and then she gazed at the eyes of the Heaven Tao in the surroundings. All of you listen too. In the future, if you aren't a match for someone or something, then you can get help. Get help. Understand? Moreover, all of you should help each other. Don't let those fellows constantly speak about defying the heavens. Understand? Yang Yi and the others watched with astonishment as those eyes of the heaven Tao nodded. Needless to say, Yang Ye's face was quite unsightly, because he always got into conflict with the eyes of the heaven Tao. If he got into conflict with one in the future and if it got help, no one knew what little sky told those eyes of the heaven Tao, but they vanished from the sky, and only little sky remained. Blood Maiden suddenly asked Yang Yi, "How did you get to know her?" Yang Yi naturally knew who Blood Maiden was referring to. He glanced at Little Sky, who was talking to Little Sky, and then he said, "It was in the ominous territory. She was lying in an ice casket." He described the entire sequence of events that led up to their meeting. Blood Maiden remained silent. Yang Yi asked, "Do you know who she is?" Blood Maiden shook her head slightly. "I've never heard of her." Yang Yi looked up at Little Sky. "Who is she? Even Blood Maiden hasn't heard of her?" Yang Yi grew even more curious about Little Sky's identity. She was really too mysterious. Little Sky spoke with Little Sky for around 15 minutes before she turned around and floated over to Yang Yi and the others. Yang Yi hurriedly asked, "What did it say?" Little Sky nodded slightly. It agreed. Lian Banzwang and the others were overjoyed when they heard this. They were finally able to leave after being imprisoned here for so long. So how could they not be happy? Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief as well. He'd promised them that he would take them out of this place, so he would be in trouble if she refused. He didn't want to be someone who didn't keep his promises. However, he didn't want to fight the eyes of the heaven Tao. Moreover, even if he did try to fight them, he couldn't win against over 100 eyes of the heaven Tao. Fortunately, he didn't have a problem now. Suddenly, Little Sky added, "But there's a condition." Yang Yi asked, "What condition?" Little Sky glanced at Lian Banzwang and the others. "They can't stay in this universe. As invaders, they aren't welcomed by the eyes of the heaven Tao in this universe. If they don't leave this universe upon leaving this place, it's very likely that they'll be pursued by the eyes of the heaven Tao. So, they must leave this universe once they leave this place." "Of course." Meanwhile, the old man with a hunched back hurriedly said, "Don't worry, Miss Little Sky. We'll immediately leave this universe upon leaving this place." Little Sky nodded slightly. "Then go on." "Thank you." Lian Banzwang and the others bowed slightly to Little Sky, and it was a sincere bow. Little Sky spoke softly. "It's quite sad that all of you have been locked up for so long, but it's still best not to kill too much from now on. Karma will come to bite you if you kill too many. In most cases, it isn't that there's no karma, it's because it isn't time for karma to strike." The old man with the hunched back spoke seriously. "We will remember that." Little Sky nodded. "Go on. Little Sky will send all of you out of this universe." As she spoke, she transformed into a ray of light that entered Yang Ye's chest. Once she left, the old man and the others gazed at Yang Yi and Blood Maiden. They bowed towards Yang Yi and Blood Maiden, and then the old man said, "Thank you. We will never forget this kindness." Yang Yi smiled. "Don't mention it. We would be dead if it wasn't for all of you." The old man grinned. "Young brother, if you have the time, come to Stellar Cloud System." Yang Yi gazed at the old man with a puzzled expression on his face. "Stellar Cloud System? It's the name of their universe." Blood Maiden spoke abruptly. "An area larger than a world is called a stellar region, and an area larger than a stellar region is called a universe. In the beginning, the universe was a single whole, but they split the entire universe into countless small universes. Simply speaking, it's like a continent that was split into countless smaller kingdoms. Our universe is called the Merak system." Yang Yi asked, "Then how huge is the universe?" Blood Maiden shook her head. "No one knows the answer to that question. Even the cultivators of the ancient times don't. Because it's truly too huge. It's really boundless." The old man nodded. "The entire universe is really too huge. However, the smaller universes aren't that huge. Our stellar cloud system isn't far from Merak's system, so you can come visit in the future. Xianxia smiled. Of course. The old man smiled. Young brother, see you. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man with a hunched back shot up into the air, and then he arrived before Little Sky. The latter shook slightly, and it didn't take long for a circle of light to appear by Little Sky's side. The old man took a deep breath as he gazed at the circle of light, and his eyes flickered with excitement. He didn't hesitate to enter the circle of light. Meanwhile, Demon Wu cupped his fist towards Xianxia. I'm sorry for the past offense. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, he entered the circle of light. In next to no time, only Lian Banzwang and the Lava Titan remained here. Lian Banzwang gazed at Xianxia. Thank you. As she spoke, she paused for a moment and continued. That day when you were fighting Demon Wu, I didn't stand by idly on purpose. I hadn't recovered fully. I merely said what I said on a whim. As soon as she finished speaking, she entered the circle of light. Xianxia was stunned, and then he shook his head and smiled. On a whim, Xianxia restrained his thoughts and gazed at the Lava Titan. Aren't you going to leave? The Lava Titan shook its head, and then it stretched out its hand. A ball of flames appeared on its palm, and then a young girl emerged from the flames. It moved the young girl towards Xianxia. As soon as she saw Xianxia, a brilliant smile instantly appeared on her face, and then she flew over to him and started clapping happily. Xianxia rubbed her little head and gazed at the Lava Titan. What do you mean? The Lava Titan spoke. She goes with you. Even though it was speaking the human tongue, it wasn't smooth. With me. Xianxia was slightly stunned and asked, Why? The Lava Titan replied, Go with you. Good for her. Xianxia came to an understanding. The little girl had been transformed by the divine inflame, and the Lava Titan had definitely noticed the changes in her. So, it wanted her to go with him. Xianxia fell silent for a while, and then he gazed at the young girl. Are you willing to go with me? She bit her finger, glanced at Xianxia, glanced at the Lava Titan, and seemed quite hesitant. Meanwhile, Xianxia smiled. If you miss it, we can come back at any time to visit. All right? The young girl's eyes lit up, and then she nodded. A smile curled up on the corners of Xianxia's mouth. The young girl was a sprite king, and she was at a much higher level than the flames which Mo Shaoling possessed. Coupled with the fact that the divine inflame had improved her, she was definitely much stronger than ordinary sprite kings. So, having her with him was a good thing. The little girl flew over to the Lava Tian, and then hugged it for a long time. In the end, the Lava Titan turned around and left. 2 streams of tears instantly flowed down from her eyes when she saw the Lava Titan leave. No, it should be 2 streams of lava. Xianxia took her in his arms and consoled her. We can come here frequently to visit. She glanced at Xianxia, nodded, and then tapped his chest while looking at him with eyes filled with a hopeful gaze. Xianxia smiled, and then he waved his right hand. He instantly transported her to the 2nd level of the primordial pagoda. Once she arrived there, she instantly ran over to the divine inflame. Meanwhile, Xianxia gazed at Blood Maiden. Where do you plan to go now? Blood Maiden pondered deeply for a moment and said, I plan to look for them, and then go find our eldest sister. Find her. Xianxia continued. Even you don't know her whereabouts? Blood Maiden shook her head slightly. Her injuries were too severe, and her body couldn't be used anymore. So, she chose to be reincarnated. She was afraid that the oracle would determine her whereabouts, so she sealed her memories and everything else. Unless her memories are unsealed, no one can find her. However, her memory should be recovering slowly now. So, we must find her before the oracle does. Otherwise, she'll be in huge danger. The oracle? Xianxia spoke in a low voice. Who is that? A person who says that she can predict the future. Blood Maiden spoke solemnly. Since you helped me, you have definitely become one of her targets. You have to be careful from now on. She's very adept at scheming. She was a huge part of the reason why we were forced to flee to the lower dimensions. So, you must be careful of her. Xianxia nodded. Since the oracle could make Nether Maiden and the others suffer a loss, he naturally wouldn't underestimate the oracle. Xianxia seemed to have thought of something and said, "Can you help me with something?" Blood Maiden replied, "Go on." Xianxia said, "Come with me." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished on the spot with Blood Maiden. 15 minutes later, Xianxia arrived at a pool. It wasn't part of Yellow Springs River, but that old man was imprisoned below it. Xianxia remained silent for a moment, and then he went below the pool. The old man was slightly stunned when he saw Xianxia. Obviously, he hadn't expected Xianxia to come so soon. It didn't take long for a wisp of surprise to flash through his eyes. "You've attained the semi-deity realm?" Xianxia nodded. "Not too long ago." The old man glanced at Xianxia. "I presume you obtained some sort of fortuitous encounter, right?" Xianxia smiled. "Indeed. I'm here to free you." The old man asked, "You can accomplish that with your current strength?" Xianxia nodded. "I should be able to. However, I have a question. Why were you imprisoned here?" He'd always been very curious about that. Because it was definitely not the Lord of the Heaven Tao who'd imprisoned the old man here. The formation that imprisoned the old man was done by a cultivator. The old man remained silent for a short while, and then he said, "A mysterious person. I don't know who he was. All I do know is that there was another snake that was imprisoned at the same time as me." "A snake?" Xianxia glanced at the old man. Obviously, it was the ancient Emperor Python. Why was the ancient Emperor Python imprisoned? It was because of its vicious nature and because it wreaked havoc everywhere. Obviously, the old man wasn't a good person as well. Otherwise, that expert wouldn't have imprisoned the old man. Xianxia remained silent for a moment, and then he walked over to the old man and said, "I promised you that I would free you when I had the ability. Now, I'm here to fulfill my promise." As soon as he finished speaking, he flipped his palm, and the sword precursor appeared in his grasp. The old man's eyes instantly narrowed when he saw the sword precursor. "A sword that surpasses the known ranks of quality." Xianxia nodded, and then he raised it and swung it. Crack! A clear and resounding crack resounded, and then the iron chains that imprisoned the old man broke into pieces. Bang! Meanwhile, a terrifying aura suddenly surged out from within the old man. Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly because the old man was a dualism realm expert. What did that represent? It represented that the old man was once a rebirth realm expert, and then his cultivation was suppressed upon arriving here. After all, this place wasn't the forbidden area of the ominous territory. Huff! The old man took a deep breath, and then he gazed at Xianxia. "That sword of yours could have cut these chains that day, so why didn't you do so?" Xianxia glanced at the old man and said, "No matter what, you're free now, and I've fulfilled my promise. Farewell." Suddenly, the old man appeared in front of Xianxia. "That sword. I want it." Xianxia's eyes narrowed slightly. "What are you trying to say? You don't understand?" The old man spoke coldly. "I said that I want that sword." Xianxia replied, "What if I refuse? Then die." As soon as he finished speaking, the old man slapped his palm at Xianxia. However, Blood Maiden suddenly appeared in front of Xianxia.